My name is Ray. I am 53 years old. I have been driving a semi-truck for 27 years. And on December 25, 2024, at approximately 6:14 in the morning, I woke up in the sleeper berth of my Freightliner Cascadia in a pilot truck stop parking lot in Effingham, Illinois. And the first thing I saw was the ceiling of my cab, which is the same thing I see every morning. And the first thing I heard was a diesel engine idling 2 spots over, which is the same thing I hear every morning. And for about 4 seconds, I did not remember what day it was. And then I remembered. And I lay there for a while. That was my 11th Christmas in a truck stop. I want to tell you what that actually feels like, not the version you imagine. Not the sad movie version where the lonely trucker stares out the window with a single tear rolling down his cheek while Silent Night plays on the radio. That is not what it is. What it is ordinary, and the ordinary is the part that will break your heart if you let it. So most of us don't let it. We get up, we find coffee, we call someone, or we don't. And the day passes the way all days pass in a cab, 1 mile at a time. Except this time the rest areas have wreaths on the doors, and the gas stations are playing Bing Crosby through speakers that were not designed for Bing Crosby. Stay with me tonight, subscribe, not because I need the numbers, because somewhere out there right now a driver is Googling "Trucker Christmas Alone" at 1 a.m. in a dark cab. And I want this to be the thing that comes up. Leave a comment. Tell me where you spent your last Christmas. That is all. I need to go back to the beginning to explain how a man ends up spending 11 Christmases in a parking lot. Because nobody plans for that. Nobody sits in CDL school and thinks, I am going to miss my daughter opening presents for the next decade. It happens the way everything in trucking happens, one load at a time. The first Christmas I missed was 2003. Bri was 4 years old. I had been driving for about 4 years by then, and I had managed to be home for Christmas every year before that. Not because the company was generous, because Karen was firm. She told me in October of every year, Ray, I don't care what they offer you. You are going to be in this living room on Christmas morning. And I was. For the first 3 years I was. But in December of 2003, my dispatcher called me on the 22nd while I was on I-35 south of Wichita. There was a load in Laredo, Texas that needed to be in Chicago by the 27th. Holiday premium. Double rate. Time and a half on the miles. The kind of number that, when you are 30 years old and your wife works part-time at a dry cleaner, and your daughter needs new shoes every 3 months because her feet grow faster than your paycheck, the kind of number you cannot say no to without doing math that makes you feel like a bad provider. I called Karen. She was quiet for a long time. Not angry quiet, tired quiet. The kind of quiet that comes from a woman who has already spent 4 years learning how to do everything alone and is being asked to do one more thing alone. She said, Ray, she's been talking about you being here for 3 weeks. She drew you a picture of a Christmas tree with a truck in the driveway. I said, I know, but this load is $4,200. And she said something I have heard in my cab on every Christmas morning since. She said, she doesn't know what $4,200 is. She knows what the driveway looks like when your truck is in it. I took the load. I told myself it was the responsible thing. I told myself Karen would understand and Bri would forget, and next year I would make it up. Next year. That is the most dangerous phrase in a trucker's vocabulary. Next year. Because next year there is another holiday load with another premium, and the year after that there is another, and each time you take it, the taking gets easier, and each time you call home, the call gets shorter, and each time your daughter draws a picture of a truck in the driveway, eventually she stops drawing it. Bree stopped drawing the truck when she was about 7. I know this because Karen mentioned it one night on the phone, in a voice that was not accusing, just factual. She said, Bree drew the house today, no truck. She did not say it to hurt me. She said it because it was true, and because the truth between us had become the only language we had left. Christmas number 2 was 2005, a rest area outside Roanoke, Virginia. I remember the rest area because the bathroom had a handwritten sign taped to the mirror that said, Merry Christmas from the Virginia DOT maintenance crew. Somebody from the highway department had taken the time to write that sign and tape it to a rest area bathroom mirror for the people who would be using a rest area bathroom on Christmas Day. And I stood at the sink washing my hands and I read that sign. And I thought about the person who wrote it. and whether they knew that the people who would read it were the people who had nowhere else to be. I kept the sign. I pulled it off the mirror, and I folded it, and I put it in my wallet, and I carried it for 2 years until it fell apart at the creases. I do not know why I kept it. I think I kept it because it was the only thing that day that acknowledged where I was without pity. Christmas number 3 was a TA in Joplin, Missouri. Number 4 was a Love's in Tucumcari, New Mexico. Number 5 was a rest area on I-90 in South Dakota, which was the coldest Christmas I have ever spent, 14 below zero. The diesel gelled in the fuel lines, and I had to idle the engine all night to keep it from freezing solid. I did not sleep. I sat in the cab wrapped in a Walmart sleeping bag rated to 30 degrees, which is a lie at 14 below, and I listened to the wind push against the trailer, and I called Karen at midnight, and she did not answer because it was midnight, and she had a 6-year-old and a life that did not wait up for phone calls from truck stops in South Dakota. Each Christmas had the same shape, the shape of a parking lot, the shape of a phone call, the shape of a man sitting in a space designed for driving, not for living, trying to make a holiday out of a dashboard in a styrofoam container. The shape never changes. The only thing that changes is you. You get a little more used to it each year. The getting used to it is the cost. Because getting used to something means it has become normal. And Christmas alone should never be normal. Christmas number 1 was the Laredo Run. I spent the night of December 24th at a truck stop outside San Antonio. There was no tree. There was no decoration. There was a fuel island and a subway that was closed, and a parking lot with maybe 15 trucks in it, all of us scattered across the asphalt like leftovers. I called Karen at 10 p.m. Bree was already asleep. Karen held the phone near her face so I could hear her breathe. I listened to my daughter breathe for about 2 minutes, and then Karen whispered, "Merry Christmas, Ray." And I said, "Merry Christmas." And we hung up. And I sat in the dark, and I ate a package of peanut butter crackers from the vending machine. And I told myself this was the only time. It was not the only time. By Christmas number 4, I had developed a routine. I want to describe the routine because the routine is the thing that makes it survivable, and the survivability is the thing that makes it dangerous. Because once you prove to yourself that you can survive Christmas alone in a truck stop, you have removed the last reason to fight for being home. The routine goes like this. On Christmas Eve, wherever I am parked, I walk into the travel center and I buy the best food they have. That is a relative term. The best food at a truck stop on Christmas Eve is usually a shrink-wrapped sandwich, a bag of Doritos, and a coffee. Some of the bigger stops put out a holiday meal. Turkey and mashed potatoes in a styrofoam container, cranberry sauce from a can, a dinner roll in a plastic bag. It costs between $8 and $12. I buy it. I bring it back to the cab. I set it on the passenger seat. Then I call Bree. The call has changed over the years. When she was small, 5, 6, 7, the call was long. She would tell me what she wanted from Santa and ask me if Santa knew where my truck was parked. I told her Santa had GPS. She believed me. I could hear the Christmas tree lights humming in the background, that specific electrical hum that cheap string lights make when they are plugged into a power strip, and the sound of Karen's television playing one of those movies about a family that almost loses Christmas but saves it at the last minute. The movies where the dad makes it home, the movies where the driveway is never empty. When Bri was 9, 10, 11, the calls got shorter. She still said Merry Christmas. She still said she loved me, but the details dropped out. She stopped telling me what she got. She stopped asking when I was coming home. She had learned, the way children of truckers learn, that the answer to, "When are you coming home?" is always a number that changes, and after enough changed numbers you stop asking because the asking is its own kind of disappointment. By the time Bree was 14, the call was 3 minutes. "Merry Christmas, Dad. Thanks for the gift card. Love you." And then silence. And I would sit in the cab and look at my phone and look at the timestamp, 3 minutes and 12 seconds. And I would think about the Christmas when I listened to her breathe for 2 minutes, and how that had been more intimate than any 3-minute conversation we had since. After the call, I eat the food. This is the part that sounds simple but is not. Eating alone on Christmas is not the same as eating alone on a Tuesday. On a Tuesday, eating alone is just eating. On Christmas, eating alone is a specific kind of arithmetic. You are aware of the chair that is not across from you. You are aware of the table that is a dashboard. You are aware of the plate that is a styrofoam container. And you are aware that somewhere, in a house you used to live in, there is a table with chairs around it and plates on it and people passing things to each other and saying things like, "Pass the butter," and "Who wants more?" and all the ordinary sentences that are the actual substance of a holiday. The food is not the holiday. The passing is the holiday. The who wants more is the holiday. And you cannot pass anything to anyone when you are sitting alone in a Freightliner eating turkey off your lap. After the food, I open the bunk curtain and I look out at the parking lot. This is the part I have never told anyone. This is the part that makes me feel something I do not have an accurate word for. On Christmas night, a truck stop parking lot is the quietest place in America. Not physically quiet. The engines are still running. The reefer units on the refrigerated trailers are still humming. Someone is always slamming a cab door somewhere in the dark. But it is quiet in a different way. It is quiet in the way that only a place full of people who are all alone at the same time can be quiet. There may be 40, 50, 60 trucks parked in that lot, and inside each one there is a man, sometimes a woman, but usually a man. And that man is doing some version of what I am doing. He has eaten something. He has called someone, or he has not called someone. He has said Merry Christmas into a phone, or he has thought about saying it and put the phone down. And now he is lying in his bunk, 3 feet from the ceiling, and he is staring at the dark the way I am staring at the dark. And we are all alone in the most populated loneliness I have ever experienced. I have never spoken to another driver on Christmas night, not once in 11 years. We do not knock on each other's doors. We do not gather. We do not acknowledge it. We get up the next morning and we go to the fuel island, and we nod at each other the way we always nod, the trucker nod, the one that says, "I see you," without saying anything else. And we pull out of the lot and we drive and we do not mention it. Because mentioning it would mean naming it. And naming it would mean admitting that we are 40 men in a parking lot on Christmas morning who all made the same choice, and who all know the price, and who are all pretending the price was worth it because the alternative is sitting with the fact that it was not. I want to tell you about Christmas number 9, 2021. I was parked at a Love's in Rawlins, Wyoming, population 8,000, elevation 6,800 feet. It was snowing. Not the pretty snow, the horizontal kind that hits the windshield like sand and makes the wipers work for every inch. The lot was half full. I had the holiday turkey plate. I had made my call to Bri, who was 22 by then and living in Tulsa with a boyfriend I had met once, and the call lasted 4 minutes. She was happy. She sounded happy. She told me she was making a ham, and I said, "You cook now?" And she laughed and said, "I've been cooking for 3 years, Dad." 3 years. My daughter had been cooking for 3 years, and I did not know because the last time I had been in a kitchen with her, she was 17 and microwaving a Hot Pocket. After the call, I walked into the Love's to get coffee. The travel center was almost empty. One cashier. One guy mopping the floor by the showers. And sitting at one of the small plastic tables near the Subway counter, which was closed, there was a man. He was maybe 60. Big guy. Carhartt jacket, a foam cup of coffee, and a shrink-wrapped muffin on the table in front of him. He was not doing anything. He was not looking at his phone. He was not reading. He was just sitting there, holding his coffee with both hands, staring at a point on the wall that I do not think existed. I got my coffee. I walked past him, and for a reason I still do not fully understand, I stopped. I said, "Merry Christmas," 2 words. The first words I had spoken to another human being face-to-face all day, because the call to Bri had been through a phone, and the cashier had not looked up from her register. He turned his head slowly, the way a man turns his head when he has not been spoken to in a while, and needs a moment to remember how to respond. And he looked at me, and he said, "Yeah, you too." 3 words. And then he went back to his coffee, and I went back to my cab. And that was the entire human interaction I had on Christmas Day 2021. 5 words between 2 men in a Love's in Wyoming at 8 p.m. on the 25th of December while the wind blew snow sideways across a parking lot full of trucks that were all pointed in different directions but going nowhere until morning. I sat in my cab that night and I thought about that man. I wondered who he had called. I wondered who he had not called. I wondered if his daughter knew how to cook. I wondered if he had a daughter. I wondered how many Christmases he had spent in a parking lot and whether his number was higher than mine. And I realized that I would never know. Because we do not ask. We do not ask because the asking opens a door that neither of us is ready to walk through while we are still out here, still driving, still choosing the load over the living room. Christmas number 10 was 2023, a Flying J in Salina, Kansas. I remember Salina because it was the first Christmas that Eli existed. My grandson had been born that September. He was 3 months old. Bree sent me a photo at 7 a.m. Eli was asleep in a car seat next to the tree, wearing a red onesie with a reindeer on the front. His hands were balled into fists the way newborns' hands are, like they are holding on to something invisible. I looked at that photo on my phone screen in a Flying J parking lot, while a Kenworth next to me warmed up its engine so loud the cab vibrated, and I zoomed in on his face until the pixels blurred, trying to see if he looked like me. He looked like Bree. Bree looked like Karen, and Karen looked like the woman standing in a kitchen doorway 25 years ago, asking me how much I would be gone. I saved that photo as my lock screen. I have looked at it approximately 900 times since then. I know the exact pixel where his left fist ends and the red onesie begins. I know his face from that photo better than I know it in person, because I have seen the photo 900 times, and I have seen his actual face 4 times. That is the math of trucking. The screen gets more of you than the people on it. I am 53 years old. My daughter is 27. My grandson Eli is 3. This past Christmas, 2024, number 11, I was in that pilot in Effingham. I woke up at 6:14 a.m. I lay in the bunk and I listened to the lot. Someone started their engine. An air brake hissed. A reefer unit cycled on. The ordinary sounds of a truck stop morning. Except this morning, somewhere across the lot, I heard something I had not heard in a truck stop before. I heard a child laugh. A high, clear laugh. The kind that cuts through diesel noise and cold air and insulated cab walls. Someone had their kid with them. Some driver had brought his child on the road for Christmas. And that laugh came through my bunk wall at 6:14 in the morning in a pilot in Illinois, and it hit me in a place I thought I had sealed off years ago. I called Bree at 7. She answered on the second ring. Eli was in the background. I could hear him. He was saying something about a present, something I could not make out, the words tumbling over each other the way words do when you are 3, and the world is a gift you are still unwrapping. Bree held the phone up and said, "Say Merry Christmas to Papa." And Eli said, "Merry Christmas, Papa's phone." Papa's phone, because that is what I am to him. A voice in a rectangle, a face on a screen, a man who exists inside a device. I said, "Merry Christmas, buddy," and I heard him drop the phone and run back to his presence. And Bree picked it up and said, "He's crazy this morning, Dad. You should see him." I should see him. I should be there. I should be on the floor of that living room in Tulsa, watching a 3-year-old tear open wrapping paper with the specific chaos that only a 3-year-old can produce. I should be there the way Todd was probably there. Todd, who married Karen and who was home every night by 6, and who spent every Christmas morning in a living room with people instead of a parking lot with trucks. I did not say any of that. I said, "Take a video for me." And she said, "I will, Dad." And we said, "I love you," and we hung up. And I sat on the edge of my bunk in Effingham, Illinois, and I drank truck stop coffee, and I waited for the video. It came 20 minutes later. 11 seconds. Eli ripping open a box with a toy truck inside. A toy truck. My grandson got a toy truck for Christmas while his grandfather sat in a real one 500 miles away. I watched that video 6 times in a row. I watched the way his hands grabbed the box. I watched the way he looked up at someone off camera, probably Bri, probably Todd, with that face children make when they cannot believe the world has given them exactly what they wanted. I watched it a 7th time with the sound off because the sound made the distance louder. There is a thing that happens in a truck stop on Christmas morning that I want to describe because I have never heard anyone describe it. Around 8 or 9 a.m. the lot starts to move. Trucks that have been parked all night begin to pull out, one by one. The hiss of air brakes releasing, the slow grind of a cold transmission finding first gear, the rumble of a loaded trailer rolling across uneven asphalt toward the fuel island. And the trucks that leave are replaced by trucks that arrive. Men who drove through the night pulling in for their rest. Men who will wake up at 2 p.m. and realize it is still Christmas, and the day is already half over, and they missed it the way they miss everything, while moving. The lot recycles itself. One set of lonely men replaces another. The parking spots do not care who fills them. The fuel pumps do not know what day it is. The building does not close. The coffee does not stop. Christmas in a truck stop is a Tuesday with better decorations and worse feelings. If you are parked somewhere right now and it is a holiday, or it is about to be a holiday, or it is just a regular night that feels heavier than it should, I want you to know something. The parking lot is not where you belong. The parking lot is where the load put you, and the load is not your life. The load is a weight you agreed to carry for someone else's freight, on someone else's timeline, for a number that will be deposited into your account on Friday and spent by Saturday and forgotten by Monday. Your life is the phone call you keep meaning to make. Your life is the laugh you heard through the wall this morning. Your life is the video you are waiting for. Make the call, not next year, tonight. My name is Ray. I am parked in Effingham. The lot is full. The cab is quiet. And somewhere in Tulsa, a 3-year-old boy is playing with a toy truck, and he does not know that the man inside the real one would trade every mile he has ever driven to be sitting on the floor next to him. Merry Christmas. From a parking lot.